Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the One Shot, where we talk about a tabletop role playing game, then play the tabletop role playing game, and then come back and review it. I'm Cody.
And I'm Joe.
And I'm David.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have our guest from the show here to talk about the game as well.
Yeah, he's back again.
He's back, baby.
From outer space.
Well,
So, hey,
okay.
Nope,
What
That's not a claim I can legally make.
well, okay, cool. I mean, what nerdy stuff have you gentlemen been up to as of late?
Well,
Anything? Yeah.
Ghost of Tsushima comes out tomorrow or Friday of recording, so I'm really looking forward to that.
I love that raw fish.
I
Ghost of
Yep,
that's a bit. That's
Ghost,
a thing.
Ghost of sashimi.
No.
Did you just say shitsumi?
No.
Sashimi.
This is a good start.
The slices of raw fish on a little bed.
Yeah, well, that's not
delicious.
this game. This game's an open world samurai game.
Okay.
Where you can kind of forego your samurai ways to become a shitty ninja, which is probably what I'll do because I like games where I can...
shitty ninja. I'm sure that's what they call this talent tree in the game.
Yes, there's cool samurai tree, and then there's shitty ninja tree, and then there's like battle tree, and that's it.
Well,
but I love stealth
other
games,
two
so like
kind of battle games already, or
I mean,
if you're a real ninja, you defeat them before you even get into a fight.
Yeah.
Oh shit!
It's like Assassin's Creed.
Okay.
You're a ninja.
But
I'll probably go down the ninja route because like that kind of gameplay excites me for some reason. And then Destiny 2, because I have an addiction. So David, what nerdy stuff have you been up to?
Well, I mean, we're running it's not a D&D campaign, tabletop role-playing game. At this point, yesterday, that is, I have made my own RPG system that my friends are graciously helping me alpha test. And let's see, other than that, I've been on some podcasts. There's these two guys I know.
Oh yeah.
And they run this podcast about like nerdy stuff.
Okay.
And sometimes they beg me to come on just so, I can increase the sort of like cultural level of what's going on.
Fair enough.
And I take pity on them and
fair.
No. I've been playing Super Smash Brothers. That's
it. Super Smash Brothers A. Man, I haven't played that game in a hot minute.
No. You want to use B. Those are the more powerful attacks.
Well, nah.
It's the quick attack.
That could be a whole podcast episode about how
don't get me started.
How weird that comment is for like a veteran Smash player.
Hell yeah. I'm not
like
play it.
competitive, but pretty good.
And nice. I'm shit tier. I enjoy fucking trolley ass people.
Well, yeah, you play Pikachu.
I don't play Pikachu. I play Wario. It's even better.
I mean, potato. So
yeah, I just like riding around on his motorcycle.
Yeah, Wario,
and just like
the other Pokemon.
Yeah, the other Pokemon.
It's true. There's a lot of Pokemon.
I mean, to
in that
be
game.
fair, all he says is Wario and runs around being like wah wah wah. He's got 4 moves, which is punch, fart, and like headbutt. Like
my favorite Pokemon is Yoshi. So yeah, it's a good bit.
But yeah,
I'm reading Scott Snyder's Justice League run, which is a lot of fun.
Nice.
Scott Snyder's a big old DC dork, and they gave him like the keys to the Justice League, and like one of the very first things he did was like, hey, remember how in Super Friends there was like the Legion of Doom, and that hasn't ever actually appeared in the comics before? It is now. And so like in the first issue, like Lex Luthor assembles the Legion of Doom and then like takes them to the Legion of Doom headquarters. He's like, guys, check it out. It's our new clubhouse. And it's a lot of fun. So yeah, he's like bringing in weird things from the cartoon that everyone knows that doesn't necessarily read comics. And it's I'm having a lot of fun with it. I've started dipping my toes more into the world of DC Comics, because that's a big daunting
Cool.
world.
It is.
There's a lot going on over there.
That is a
Yeah,
wild.
depending on which freaking Earth you're on.
That's true. And we're at
Very
like
true.
reboot like 17 or whatever. They love rebooting their universes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there was Crisis on Infinite Earth where they like blew everything up, and then Flash ran back in time to save his mom, and I guess that was a bad idea because it fucked everything up really bad.
Yep.
And then other crazy things happen. So yeah, we're there's been like at least 4 or 5 or 6 reboots. So
We tried to do a continuity reset that included the Watchmen when they got it was bad.
Oh, fun.
It was bad. It was bad.
God, who watches that? I wonder.
That's the perennial question.
So, anyways, I heard about some kids on bikes, which is ironic because our game had no kids on bikes.
There were no kids or bikes in this particular.
There actually, what you didn't know is in the Cody director's cut, there is a bike in every scene, but it's kind of like a Where's Waldo thing where you have to like look for it.
Okay,
but you didn't look for it, so
I never looked
there.
for
but
a bike.
It was there.
Once.
There was a bike, but definitely no children.
Nope.
My
8-year-old child was invoked once. Little Jimmy Jones.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, he was mentioned.
You invoked the power of a child.
But it's the weird legal precedent that no one dares ever talk about is the power of a child.
Yeah, so we all, the three of us got to play in the one shot of Kids on Bikes. So we're here to talk about our final thoughts about the game and more importantly about the game we played. Not necessarily, I mean, the mechanics for sure, but then also just like the weird game that we played.
For sure.
And then we'll end it off with how we feel about running this as a one shot or a stabled full length campaign.
Yeah.
So I'll start.
Sure, go for it.
And as a GM, a game master, if you will, this was a blast to run. I only needed 3 pages out of the entire book to run this. I literally just had a bookmark for 1 page, and I would just flip the 3 pages, and that's all I ever needed to run it, which was super, like, it was so relaxing to not be like, all right, of my 6 books, which one do I need? Oh, Volo's Guide to Monsters? All right, flip. Oh, but I also need the Monster Manual, and, like, that was really nice. On my side, from my side, all the mechanics seemed to work fine, although if I had to critique myself, I would argue that I probably didn't have a good idea of what the difficulty checks could be. I feel like some of mine could have been a little harder or a little easier depending on the task at hand. But I think overall I did all right. It's also worth mentioning that we did play with it in the system, but there was an errata for the flaws. I know Joe and I shit on that during the first like our preview of the game.
Yeah.
But it did expand on the flaws in a way to like make them mechanically matter, like giving a -1, 2, or 3, or outright not letting them roll were options to the system. But overall, I think on my side, it went really well. But I'd like to hear what it was like for the players.
Yeah, I kind of discovered something about myself, which is that I found it at moments to be a little too loosey-goosey for my personal liking, which is not to suggest that like that's necessarily in a bad way, but I feel like there were a few times where the ball was passed to me and I literally like couldn't think of something to do or say. And I feel like this sometimes comes up when we're playing other tabletop role-playing games. The one I think that the one I'm most familiar with personally is Dungeons and Dragons. And sometimes if I ever find myself in a pickle, it's nice to kind of look at that list of what's the word, like looking at that skill list and kind of thinking about, it's like, okay, well, how would like a history check impact this situation we're in? How would a deception check impact this situation we're in? Things like that. And so it's like, I feel like at the very least, just having a list of skills like put me in sort of a mindset of like, okay, here's a potential route I can follow. Here's a potential thing I can do that maybe no one else has tried yet. But I found that sometimes just not having anything, like literally having the whole of my thought at my disposal, sometimes made it a little overwhelming for me personally. That was kind of my biggest thought was, there were moments where I truly was like, I have no idea what I'm doing right now. I like that could sometimes be a little much. Whereas with like another system, like sometimes having that more specified, almost menu of things you can do, I think sometimes helps me with my personal decision making process. So I think that was one of my biggest thoughts about the game overall. Was just sometimes it was a little too loosey goosey for my liking.
That's interesting that I think that's interesting that that's your experience with it, because mine was kind of the exact opposite. I thought it was great. I tend to prefer games without skill lists. Um, not that I don't like Fifth Edition; it's a good game, but as a discrete mechanic, I prefer this kind of approach.
Mm.
Um, I think that the rules light approach works great for the setting. Most people will be broadly familiar with what's going on, as opposed to like a magical setting
Hmm.
or a science fiction setting. I mean, that said, there's the sort of like powered characters module to this that we did not play with. So perhaps
Right.
if you were to play with that, that could provide a template if you wanted to do something that was a bit more fantasy or science fiction with this kind of a system. And I know that they have like supplements and are working on other games like Teens in Space or whatever that use this same base.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so potentially it could be great for that stuff. But I thought that the simplicity of it really worked well with how easy it was to think of it as, oh, I'm really there. I know what all of this looks like. I've been to a town with a closed ski slope. I've been to, I haven't been to Sharpsville, Indiana, but I've been to places like it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and those types of things, and thinking about it that way. And I really liked how it was, you know, I was completely free to think about, okay, how is my character going to approach this? Which is how I approach it in, a game with or without skill lists. But I thought it was great, and I also really liked the narrative resolution in the mechanics, like how close you are or how far away you are, whether positive or negative, has a huge impact on how the story moves forward.
Sure.
Um, Character creation was super fast. I liked how the most amount of time I spent in the character creation was answering the. Sorry about that if you heard that. I liked how the most amount of time that I spent in the character creation was answering questions about my character's inner life and the relationships to the other characters. I don't think I've ever had a character in a one shot that I knew as well as Danny.
Hmm.
I agree.
And maybe that's just a problem with me that I didn't do it as good until this point. But I thought that the system really helped.
Yeah.
Helped with penetrating to that.
Yeah, because arguably in other systems they don't ask you a lot of those questions as like character building. Like they kind of assume you do, but not all
Yeah.
games really have that sort of like, you need to answer these role-playing questions in order to move forward. Because I
Mhm.
know I've done a ton of one-shots in 5th edition where I'm just a guy with a silly voice and like that was it. Like that's all
Sure.
I had,
And then you
the
die in
game
the first
doesn't ask
combat, and
for
it's
it.
fine.
Yeah, exactly. Like sometimes you just get cleaved in half by two guards and like it's fine.
Sure.
Um but yeah, I really like that the system definitely made you feel like you were very like with the questions at hand, you knew who your character was before you even jumped in,
Mm-hmm.
which was nice.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Joe.
Oh, I mean, no, and I think that, you know, there is, I think it was just more along the lines of, you know, sometimes it's, at least when I play, like sometimes I look at that list of skills and I'm like, huh, I wonder how an investigation check might push us in one direction versus a history check might push us in another direction. And so it's like, I know how my character, like, you know, and then I kind of boil it down to like, what do these skills make sense for my character? Whereas with this, like sometimes like I said, sometimes the ball was passed to me and I was just kind of like, "Ugh." Like I found myself, you know, I was like, oh my god, I don't know how my character would necessarily react in a
Right.
situation. And it's possible that it was the playbook I chose, because I chose a playbook more for the lulls than like really thinking about it in terms of like how this might fit into a narrative.
You don't say, Karen Jones.
Yeah, no, I saw overprotecting parent and so I was like, "Ooh, I'm gonna be a Karen. That'll be hilarious."
Yeah.
And so yeah, I don't know. It's just that was that, like, you know, and I feel like, you know, I'd be willing to try other playbooks and things like that and maybe see like if I could find one that makes a little bit more sense to me as, you know, as a player, or even along the same lines as like, you know, being in the same age group as other players at the table. I mean, I think in this case it was kind of interesting because we only had 2 players versus, you know, how the dynamic might feel different if we had like 4 or 5 players sitting around the table with us. And so like maybe the relationships might have formulated in different ways to, you know, pull us in different levels of like getting us in or out of the story, as it were. But
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like just there are times where having that skill list is useful because it's like, oh, I wonder what an acrobatics check might do in this particular situation. Maybe it's a
Yeah.
distraction, you know, or maybe it's that thing you need to discover the mystery box or whatever. So
Yeah, to be clear, I'm not criticizing that method of
oh
play.
no, yeah, I know.
I'm generally I tend to like games that are actually usually more mechanically complex than Kids on Bikes, because I tend to agree with that mindset that having something to bounce off of helps you come up with good ideas. But it's a personal taste thing. I mean, some people like Fate and stuff like that, where it's like, what are rules?
Sure.
What are the rules in this game?
Not there are rules to Fate, but
I disagree.
as far as like anything that I was unhappy with in the system, it would only be that I mean, I'm not really unhappy with anything. It would just be like, I wish that there was a little bit more. I was gonna say that like flaws should have had mechanics, but what you were talking about at the beginning of the episode sounds interesting.
Yeah.
I would kind of wish fears did more than just force a snap decision. Some reward for taking a penalty when dealing with a fear or a flaw and succeeding might be neat. Like getting adversity tokens if you deal with a fear or a flaw and succeed against it. And then, you know, this is segueing somewhat into the ongoing campaign bit, but having some sort of advancement system would be neat.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. There are definitely things that need to be addressed
Tweaked.
when looking at a long-term game for this,
Sure.
for sure. Because even the book kind of doesn't even suggest it, you know? Like, they're kind of like, yeah, this is great for, like, your every once in a while adventure, but, like, if you just so happen to want to play long-term, it's like, yo, I just bought a $40 book. Of course I want to play it more than once.
I kinda,
like, what the fuck?
I kind of said this in my in the intro video, but it's like I've, you know, I kind of read books casually for fun, like as I kind of run across them, and there are so many systems where it just seems to be designed for like a one shot. And like there are just so many systems out there where it's like, all right, so here are some advancement rules. Like you get experience if you know, fail a roll or whatever, or things like that. But also like it just seems to be so many games, like there is almost like a cap at like, all right, so like once you level up like 3 times, maybe consider retiring that character and like trying something else out. And it's just like, okay, like, are you intending for me to play this game long term? And like, as far as all of the various books I've read goes, this one is probably like the lowest in terms of just like even proposing like, well, this is what would a long-term game would be like if you want to do that, nerd. Like, it's not quite that aggressive, but it's certainly was like, if I guess there's long-term potential, I
I mean,
suppose.
I can see why an RPG would move into that design space. Particularly at the independent RPG community, you're competing with a large number of games for people's attention, and most of the people in the RPG community are going to be playing Dungeons and Dragons, and then the other like 30% are going to be playing Pathfinder,
Yeah.
Starfinder, or something. And then you got like the 10, 15, and it's just like, okay, and the other like 200 probably really good games, way more than 200, but like, you know, and you're all competing, and these people who are gonna be wanting to play your game are also gonna be wanting to play other games. So you might as well put your best foot forward and not be like, oh, the game really gets going when you hit level 5 after 2 months. It's like, well,
That's true.
most people aren't gonna get there.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I can see why they do it for sure. It's just like
I
I
mean,
guess it's
yeah.
like the old D&D gamer in me that's like,
Sure.
I want to see what a fucking level 20 controlling parent looks like in Kids on Bikes, like I want my
You get a
Time
I want
stop.
my
you get a skill
yeah, I want to
where
be able to stop time
you get a skill
for
where
my
like
son.
you become the manager, and yeah, exactly. Then you call the shots.
That's actually a prestige class,
Yeah.
is the manager.
For sure. It's weird. See, I was looking at it at level 3. You get the haircut. And with the haircut, you
Oh.
get a +2 to your brains rolls. But you also get like a -5 to your like charm rolls or whatever. It's really complicated. It was a really
Huh.
it was a really
Okay.
interesting
Okay. The
modular.
game's really starting to open up once you get to high tier controlling parent or overprotective parent gameplay.
Yeah.
Got it. So unless anyone has any other things about the mechanics, I kind of wanted to briefly talk about the game.
Sure.
Because I know for me, I had to kind of cook up a lot of stuff and kind of essentially with the amount of time that we had to play, because I would have loved to do like a traditional Cody style game in this where the world is your oyster and I'm pretty reactive and know how to like handle when you guys are like, yeah, I want to murder the barkeep.
Sure.
But I did have to put this sort of on rails to an extent so that we could maintain the, so that you're not
Right.
watching One Shot Part 17 of Kids on Bikes
Yeah.
because we couldn't finish it in a single night.
Sure.
No, I mean it's something you sign on for with a one shot.
Yeah.
It's like there's going to be a certain direction. You're going to have to conform to that direction, and that's what everybody's agreeing to.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. But that being said, even with the rails, I wasn't expecting the game to basically be two story plots that were happening simultaneously and then at the end converging. I was kind of like, I don't know, maybe my big dumb brain was like, oh, they're just gonna like make up an excuse to hang out with each other for the whole session. But I actually like really liked the back and forth of like, Karen's at Blockbuster.
Sure.
Meanwhile, Danny's at the police station and like all the weird like interactions there. But I wanted to hear your guys' thoughts on how this planned out in your brains, or how it played out rather.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting just because I ended up kind of enjoying the parallel nature of it, and especially for like a Stranger Things Monster of the Week style, like if this was like an episode, that would be kind of fun, right? Where it's like, anytime you watch a Stranger Things, the mom whose name I'm forgetting is like off doing her own thing, and then it's like the kids are like, "Here's a government conspiracy," and she's like, she's picking up maybe one in every like 5 pieces or whatever. Um, and then near the end, she gets on board with it. I had tried pretty early on in the session to try to, create some level of party cohesion, and then like as soon as that went away, I was like, I don't know what to do. Which is why I went down the Blockbuster rabbit hole, because I was like, all right, well, all right, here we go. Yeah, so in that sense, I think that I had a kind of trajectory that my brain was going, and then when it didn't work, I think that's when I had to start like thinking outside of the box a little bit, outside of the Blockbuster box. Um, but like I said, I ended up really enjoying it. And I also thought it was kind of cool because it did give me an opportunity to try out weird little aspects of my characters, of the adult build and the overprotective parent build. So like the fact that she was really kick ass at fighting, which I thought was really fun and kind of funny.
And was super helpful when you almost bled out from being shot.
That is true. But yeah, I mean, I think that it was interesting just kind of to see how those narratives paralleled one another. And I think at one point, Cody, you had mentioned that it's kind of funny that like the stories were like teen conspiracy theorist like getting to the bottom of a government plot, and overprotective mom trying to prevent her 16-year-old from watching Army of Darkness. Which is
It's
like,
such a good.
well, it's weird
I feel
and
like
it's
that's
fun.
the essence of Kids on Bikes, right?
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
that's totally Stranger Things shit. It's the same. It's like Goonies level shit. Like kids get into some weird, wacky shit, while meanwhile, mom's at Blockbuster chewing out the person for not having Army of Darkness on hand.
Yeah.
Like,
So yeah. I mean, I definitely had fun with it. It's just there were moments where I found myself panicking a little bit. So
fair enough. Fair enough. What about Danny? How was your experience with the conspiracy theorist teenager?
Oh, it was fantastic. I enjoyed playing that character. Um, I think that the overall shape of the story was very good. Um, I was not bothered by the parallel nature at all. At the first scene when Karen started going off, I was like, "Oh, these characters are not going to get along." And like I was just super prepared for our first. I know like Joe like went through this whole thing to like get us to like be in the same place and interact. And, oh, I gotta talk to Danny because, and like you were like, okay, go talk to Danny because your kid knows him and stuff. And then she was like, you need to blah blah blah. Danny's like, I'm out. And I was like, yep, that's how this is gonna
sure.
be.
I will say, as a GM, that this whole bit was like low key scary. That like there was literally zero cohesion. I'm like, fuck. Now I'm gonna have to put on the fucking. I'm gonna have to put on the GM like boots and like really kick things into gear to get
Mhm.
everything to fit together. But I did enjoy
Right.
the. I thought it was way more fun that you guys did not get along, and that you kind of did when things started to actually like come to a head.
For sure.
Right. I think that it I can see that you were kind of backed into this corner by how the story was going to try and get us to get together and then get to the slopes um in time to have that whole scene play out. I feel like in terms of the story, I think Barnes took the wind out of our sails a little bit. I,
Yeah.
I imagine he might have been there in case we failed some rolls and stuff, and so we would still manage to be the heroes. But like as soon as it was like, oh no, he's a good guy, it was like, oh, so it's not us against the world.
Sure.
It's just
Mhm.
kind of like, oh, we're here to help this FBI agent. Like it was still fun, and the final scene was still really good. But it's like we put everything together, and then like Barnes goes like, hey, I, you did it. Here's your FBI
Yeah.
badge.
Karen, do you want to be an FBI
Okay.
officer? It's like, no, I got kids. Like, what are you talking about?
Right. Well,
But
originally he wasn't even
I
going to be a
understand you
part
had time
of.
constraints.
Yeah, originally wasn't even going to be a part of it. Like he was just going to be a side B plot that like at least for the one shot wasn't going to be a thing, but like, we never know when we might bring these people back or whatever.
Sure.
But Yeah,
Sure.
but then like when everything kind of was like shit, now I need to force them together to go to the slopes. Um, I wanted to make sure that there were no more stops along the way because we were pressed for time at that moment. So, uh, yeah, he definitely. That's why I didn't even roll for him. He got shot because I wanted you guys to deal with things, not him.
Sure.
Right.
So
Yeah, I figured that
to
was the
yeah,
point was to get us there, and then we had to like save him and stuff like that.
yeah.
Um,
So hopefully that like with him just kind of taking a back seat to the finale, that kind of balanced it out a little bit.
Yeah.
I know he did kind of was like, "Hey, I need you guys to go to the slopes now because we're running out of time." As he's looking at his fucking, God watch. But yeah,
well,
that
I mean, we had already figured out that we needed to go to the slopes. And
right,
and
right.
all like we had figured all that out, but then he just kind of came along and was like, "No, I've been on this case the whole time."
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't so much that because like we still kind of figured most of it out,
Yeah.
but then he was like, "Oh, I know who the actual bad guy is, and I'm not one of them." I suppose my only critique of it would be that he took away the last part of the mystery.
Mm-hmm.
We figured out everything up until the very end, and then he was like, "Here's your mystery answer," and then we went and did the action part.
Right.
And like I said, it's a minor critique. It was all still really
Yeah.
good, and I know that the constraints of a one shot are constraining.
Sure.
Oh
You
yeah,
have to get
because
things moving.
originally if things had moved a little faster, I wouldn't have even introduced him.
Yeah,
But that's the kind of gambit of running a one shot where your timer is coming to a close. Is you'll and for those of you who are either inexperienced GMs or have never run stuff like this shit'll happen all the time where it's like you wanted this really cool thing to happen or you wanted things to happen a certain way, but due to time constraints, you gotta pull some punches and maybe not necessarily give out the best thing, but do what's needed to be done to finish off a one shot like that.
Sure.
or if it's not a one shot and you're just playing a game with your friends and you're not recording it, so it doesn't matter about how long it is.
That's
Um,
true.
it won't necessarily be about time, but it could very well be that your players will zig when they should zag, and you're like, "Fuck,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
have to come up
some
with this other thing that's not related to this to get them back on." You got to play the shell game a little bit to get them back to where you wanted them to go.
Sure.
Or if you're brave enough to make up something totally new.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you just need an Agent Barnes to make sure everyone stays on path when they do something wild and weird. It's not the first time I've done that in a game ever.
Sure. Who would do that?
No, yeah. So,
I've kind of got an interesting thought about the finale as a sequence.
uh-huh.
Um, it kind of turned into like an action movie.
Yeah, a
I
little
think it
bit.
was part. I think it was partly due to like the narration style that we were going for, and it was neat.
Mm-hmm.
I think that one thing I was really interested in at the end was like it seemed like there a choice of how much a role governs. Basically, like how many times do you need to defeat an enemy until they're taken out.
Mm.
It seems like that's somewhat up to you, the game master. It looks
It
like
is
it's
a
partially
plus
determined
10.
by the die result
It is
charts.
a plus 10. If you ever
Okay,
roll, yeah, if you roll over a 10, they are out. They are either dead or if that's not the kind of game you're running, they have been like KO'd
Yeah.
and unconscious.
so
So,
did you
yeah.
just play it by the book? So it was like you just rolled over and over until we got a plus 10, or was it something where you were like,
Um
oh, they've
it
tried
was
three
kind of
times, they've got a plus 6 each time? Like, how did you do that?
I did it by the book, and basically the way I thought is like everyone kind of has a turn in that moment, and like as long as you're not like dying or dead, that like it just kind of went back and forth until you guys rolled like because I'll be honest, when Karen shot the mechanic, he rolled like dog shit. Like I think he rolled like a 2 or a 1 to
Mm.
dodge the shot, and Karen rolled something stupid high because of her fight. And so yeah, he was just out cold, but the other guy, or I'm sorry, not the mechanic. The mechanic got stabbed. The police officer who was
Hamilton,
yeah,
Officer
Hamilton.
Lin Manuel Miranda.
Yeah. Yes. He got iced pretty early, but you guys didn't roll quite high enough to defeat him right away. But I did also give you guys, like, both of you a turn to act. So, like, when the initial strike didn't do enough, Karen's did because you know, like dice do, they either fuck me or they fuck you. So that first roll was like you were very close to getting the plus 10, but not enough to like completely knock him out. Whereas when Karen chucked the spear that
when Karen Aquaman his ass.
That's
yeah.
true.
She did enough. So I played it by the book in that case.
Sure.
I think the only thing I didn't do quite by the book was the monster, because I'm just like, all right, we are really close to, like, we're getting to another hour. I didn't want to, like, make another small episode of, like, the epilogue. So I think I may have just set a DC for that, because it wasn't actively trying to fight you back.
Sure.
It was hoping that the police officer and the mechanic could do something against a mom and 2 children. So
and an FBI agent.
Yeah, that too. But he got like knocked out of that fight pretty early on.
Okay, that's interesting to note, because I feel like a potential sticking point could be like if you ended up in a situation like that, if you're playing it sort of like how we did, where it was like almost an initiative order where each of us got like a thing we could do, you know, sort of informally. I feel like, you know, if the dice aren't on your side and everyone's only doing plus or minus 3s, you could end up in a situation where it could like, how do we end this?
Sure.
Does this end?
Well, I think
I don't know if that's real,
you do gain some benefits for not quite hitting that mark, like if memory serves, because like that's what happened to Karen, right?
Right, yeah, she got injured.
Attacker's roll is greater by 7 or 9. The defender is badly hurt. The bullet hits them dead on, and they're losing a lot of blood. They need professional care immediately, or they'll die. The other ones are like 4 to 6, where it's like they're hurt, which basically that only happened once during the fight, and I did take that into consideration when I rolled the second time for the mechanic. He rolled really low because he had a -1, because you guys, you know, basically shanked him in the kidney before he could do anything else. So yeah, you can do, like, it's a little free form in the way they describe it, but like I put it in mechanics because that's just how I roll.
Sure.
But yeah, I played that mostly by what the book told me to. I basically tried to memorize the varying degrees, but I'll tell you what, having a chart that's like from 1 to 3 this happens, from 4 to 6 this happens, can be a lot to like just outright memorize.
Sure.
Yeah,
especially when there's different ones for combat, there's different ones for just regular checks, and then setting the DC is kind of in a similar vein, where it's like, if you set your difficulty from 7 to 9, it's for a skilled person who would succeed on that. Or, you know, there was a lot to like, quote unquote, memorize in that respect.
Yeah, it seems like there's quite a bit to it, because you're dealing not just with D20s. It's not like in, you know, any D20 based system, you can be like, okay, 15 is like 30% for somebody who doesn't have a modifier.
Right. You can like, do
you
very
just
quick math.
Each increment is 5%, and you can, if you can quickly do that, like you start to get a sense, and then you know, in games where there's like various modifiers, like 5th edition, where it's like, oh, I got a +5, or the average modifier is usually like +3 early on, or what have you. You can start to think about your percentage chances, but with this, you can't really do that so quickly, because every dice has a different percentage outline.
Every stat has a different die. Yeah, there's a lot to go on, so you kind of have to follow the rules, at least to that respect. But you know what? I think ultimately I played that pretty to the book, just because I wanted to get a feel for the system, because and this is spoilers for how I feel about Kids on Bikes in terms of a one-shot. I would fucking run this again. I would do this once every 3 or 4 months as like just like a hey, let's take a break from the campaign to do like a silly mystery in a town, like something like that. I would do this for a one shot for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
What about you guys?
I think that this is a system that's really beautifully made for like a break in the action every couple of months. Um, like I said, I think that while I think it was maybe like a little loosey goosey in this particular instance, maybe a different playbook or a having more people at the table would change the dynamics and feel of that in a way. Um, so yeah, I think that this is a well designed game for a one shot, and it seems like that's what they were kind of intending it to be as well. So
Yeah.
Um, in slight like tangent off of what you said about like it feeling a little nebulous at the beginning, like I kind of felt the same way. I think some of that might have been the narrative framing, where at the beginning, like Cody, when you asked us like, "What are you guys doing?" and I'm like, "Oh, okay, we don't have an inciting incident yet."
mm-hmm.
No, not yet.
Um, I guess I'm doing this. So I feel like that might also have something to do with some of the bewilderment early on,
Sure.
where it
And
was
I
kind
think
of a bit of a
yeah,
slow build. But I don't know.
well, originally I just wanted to like get a gauge for like, kind of like if you've ever played Grand Theft Auto 5,
I have
you
not.
play as three separate characters throughout the majority of the game, and when you switch from one to the other, it kind of like pulls back, and you get to see like for just a brief moment the day in the life of one of those other characters before you take control. So it was more like that, where it's like I just wanted to know where it
Sure.
was, and then build off of that. Just because I know, this is very for a lot of this, like especially like the world building and stuff, it's very collaborative. So probably not expressed in the best way, but that was the intent of like just being like, what would you be doing on a Saturday, kind of a thing.
Yeah, I don't think it was a mistake or anything. I'm just wondering if that contributed to your sense of like, Joe, maybe I'm off base there.
I mean a little bit, but yeah.
But to answer the question, I'm going to continue my contrarianness and say I would play a campaign of this for sure.
Oh yeah,
Um, like I don't I mean I might want to like homebrew some advancement stuff,
for
but I mean
sure.
I tinker with pretty much any game that I play. So that doesn't seem like a big hurdle to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I really like the system, and I mean, I would play it as a one shot again, of course. But I also think that it could be super fun as a longer term investment.
Yeah.
Oh, I 100% agree with that. I would, yeah, I initially just answered the first part of the question without answering the second. But I agree with some tweaks and some modifications to what progression looks like, because it's more of less just like work it out with your players, which to me
Sure.
is kind of a one of my personal gripes with kids on bikes. But yeah, if I fix that, because like I do that all the time anyways when I'm playing tabletop role playing games, is like tweaking it to fit what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
This is a great system to do in a game where you're more worried about like this feels like a television show for Stranger Things. You don't have to get into the nitty gritty of like money or food or any of like those things that like show up in another big game like Pathfinder or Dungeons and Dragons, but like focuses on like the really cool bits that make that setting very neat. So I would totally run this as a campaign
Yeah.
for sure.
And then I was the more I thought about it, like I don't know if I would necessarily want to play a full campaign of this, but my idea was that were we to play more of it, that every session might explore like a different era of the town. And so it's like, we might play a couple sessions in the 90s, then we might hop back to the 60s for a little bit, then maybe like advance to, a more contemporary setting, things like that. And so, it's like it gives you a chance to
It's
try
cool.
out more playbooks and things like that without necessarily having to invest. Because I don't know if I would personally like, I'm not just I just don't know if would have it in me to figure out tweaks. I mean, obviously playing with you guys, I'm sure you guys would come to the table with some interesting stuff. But if I were to play with a group that doesn't necessarily comprise of people who like, tweaking their games or things like that, I think that would be a fun way to tell a bigger narrative without necessarily playing the same characters every single time, but like,
Yeah, I
return
think
to
that'd
the
be really cool.
system. So yeah.
100%. I like it.
In terms of tweaks, things that came to mind immediately were like, I don't see why you couldn't have like at certain points getting additional like +1s or going up to even like a +2, maybe a +3. You don't want to go too far. With some of the stats, that's one way you could advance. And another thought I had was if there's a significant plot beat or a time skip, or it's been a week or two or a couple months or something, you could swap two stats that have dies that are right next to each other. So if you have a D8 in charm and a D10 in fight, you could swap them. So you can representing like you're getting better at one thing, but letting one thing that's sort of similar, like lie fallow a little bit. Those are two ideas I had where you could change your character's statistics and progress over time to better fit how a character develops over the course of a longer, larger story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like those. I would do something similar, adding bonuses to the die. I don't know if I would do die increases, like having people upgrade their die. I've been pondering about that. I might do it, but it might be like something that takes a lot longer than just getting like a +1 or a free skill. But yeah, swapping die tiers to like, focus on like, oh, I've been training in one thing and letting something go. That's super good. Shit, I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do with this because it is
Yeah.
so open to interpretation for a lot of those things. Like, you can even start making up like different perks that you get. Like, say there's not a perk or a skill that, your teenager has that like doesn't quite fit what you're looking for. You can make them up and like, continue to add more to the game like that. Getting,
Yeah.
certain items that might allow you to do things that you otherwise couldn't do could also be like a form of progression. Like, you're a bunch of kids, but like maybe you find um a crazy Swiss Army knife, and now like, you don't have to make checks to like cut rope or, do like survival based things because you got that knife. Like, there's a couple different ways to do
You know what other um, property this system I think would be like absolutely fantastic at emulating?
huh.
Doctor Who.
Oh yeah, holy shit, I like it. Yeah, this would
Yeah, you could do
absolutely.
tons of stuff with that.
Yeah, 100%. Now my brain is racing. Anyways,
Yeah.
but yeah, this is a good system. I actually really enjoyed it. I would play it in all spectrums. One shot. Like if someone's like, "Yeah, let's do Kids on Bikes one week," I'd be like, "Fuck yeah, I'll make a overprotective parent and name them Karen
I'll
Jones."
make one Karen.
Yes, I will make one Karen, please. Yes, I'm at the tabletop role playing games R Us. I would like one Karen, please, and I would like to see your manager. Yes, I'm already role playing her.
Oh god.
Um,
Yeah.
all right.
I mean, yeah, that's all I got. So
Yeah, no, that some good bits. I think we can call this a close on Kids on Bikes, the one shot.
like, yeah. Hey Cody, if people like this episode and they want to learn more, where could they learn more?
They could go to our website at www.fandomroulette.com, where they can find all the episodes as they come live. They can find little information about us, and if they go all the way to the bottom, there's a little form you can fill out to basically give us your opinions on what you'd like us to, what in this case, for the one shot, what tabletop role playing games do you want us to tackle? There's tons of them. There's a bajillion of them, and I couldn't possibly know all of them. So
For sure.
if you've got one that you really like and you want us to play, like, feel free to reach out to us there.
And if people liked this episode and they wanted to have a friend listen to it, but they don't necessarily use the same platforms, what are some platforms that we're on?
We're on Google Play, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, your RSS catching feeds. We're on YouTube. Basically anything. All you got to do is search Fandom Roulette.
And if people want to engage with us on the various social media platforms that we're on, where are some places where they can find us?
We are on Twitter at fandomr_podcast, where we do a lot of our updates for when shows go live, when I stream, etc., etc. But you can also find us on Facebook and Instagram. Just search Fandom Roulette.
Yeah. Also, please remember to like, rate, review, and subscribe. Ring the bell. Leave us nice in a
Smash
comment.
it!
Help us move up the ranks. All the little things that you can do help us out in a lot of ways. To help us, keep going up the ranks and get on more people's radars. But we want to thank you
Yeah.
so much for listening. Thanks for joining us for that. And signing off for Fan Roulette, this is Joe.
And I'm Cody.
I'm David.
And as always, stay nerdy.
Stay super nerdy.